Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.
Welcome to episode 20 of TwoBobs Cast. We're a A to Z rock and metal podcast. We are the TwoBobs, as always. I am Herd, and I'm here with my partner, Mr. H. What's up, Mr. H? How you doing?
I'm doing, man. I'm doing.
20.
20. I know. 20 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
I
feel
never
like
done anything 20 weeks in a row.
either have I. That's what I'm saying. I feel like
Right.
that's like
Even when I was on like a bowling league, I feel like I missed a week somewhere. I don't know if I did 20 weeks in a row, you know. So
right. No, it's an accomplishment. I mean, it's 5 months, right? Of
that's right.
continuous
Consistency.
weekly content.
That's right.
So
Continuous.
So, partner, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready to take a walk with me
In hell?
in hell?
Yes, I am.
So we got Lamb of God.
Silence.
Yeah, Lamb of God. We both really like these guys, and man, I even
And we just
after
saw
listening
them.
to these, what's it? Yeah, we just
And
saw
we
them.
just saw him. This is great.
Man, the more I listen to them, the more I'm like, these guys are awesome. I
know,
love this
man.
band.
Yeah, it's crazy. Same for me. Yeah, we'll be peppering that throughout here, I'm sure. We'll founded in 1994 by the bass player, Mr. Campbell. And you got Chris
old
Adler,
guy.
the old guy,
He looks old. I know they're about the same age, but
right? John Campbell.
Yeah.
Chris Adler on drums, guitarist Mark Morton, and a guitar player named Matt Connor, and they started as Burn the Priest. That was the first name of this band. Now, they put out 2 albums under that name. We're not going to review either one of them because they don't even count those as Lamb of God albums. So, although it's pretty similar, it's a little different, but it's usually, I guess, the second album, they put one out in 2019 or something like that, or
yeah.
with them. So that was kind of more with the current guys, but the original one in 99 was with some different dudes. But anyway, they recorded some demos back then, and then they added a man named Randy Blythe on vocals. Mark Morton, the guitarist, left to go to grad school, and came back a few years later. Matt Connor left to play in some other bands, and he was replaced by Abe Spear. So they released their first full album in 1999, as I said, as Burn the Priest. Abe Spear left and was replaced by Chris Adler's younger brother, Willie, on guitar, and then changed the name to Lamb of God due to the new lineup. And so, I guess, due to the new lineup, and also so they didn't get labeled as a satanic band, I guess, was the reason. There's a lot of rumors out there that they changed their name due to getting banned from playing venues in the Richmond, Virginia area where they founded the band and where they played locally a lot. But that did not happen. They did get banned from playing some of those clubs, but that occurred later. I tried to count them up, just like we talked about with Killswitch, and I didn't have to count anything for Led Zeppelin because I never saw them. But how many times I've seen them live? I looked up. I've seen them 13 times in Cleveland, and 1 time for sure in Toledo, and at least at 2 other festivals. So, including the time we just saw them in August, so it was only 2 months ago. I've seen them at least 15 times, 16 times, not including other festivals that I had been to in other cities, Ozfests.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of counting Cleveland ones, but and festivals that I remember. But I know I've seen them a couple more times than that. But festivals, I mean, you can kind of lump those together. They play the same 6 to 8 songs just about at every festival they play. They come out with a new album, they'll play one new song and play
Yep.
six older ones or whatever. So
Yep.
they generally play the same ones at those, but it's still, it counts. But yeah, I love this band like way more than I realize sometimes, which is weird to say. But their first album as Lamb of God came out September 26, 2000, 10 songs, called New American Gospel. This was produced by Steve Austin. No, not that one.
Give me a beer.
Another beer.
Yeah.
This one is from a band called Today Is the Day. He is the singer and guitar player in that band. He produced this album along with Chris Adler and Lamb of God. I thought this was funny because it doesn't sound very good. Like this one, even
No.
it doesn't sound good at all. There's a weird like bass drum thing going on where it actually sounds like the mallets from the pedals are actually hitting the microphone and not drums. Like it's such a weird, off-putting sound. I almost don't want to listen to it because
Right.
apparently there's nothing they can really do about it. I thought this was hilarious. They actually acknowledged it and they said that the reason for the poor sound was time constraints and heavy alcohol consumption. I'm like, hey, at least you're being honest, right?
Right. Right.
Something for honesty there. I thought that was hilarious. This is not the greatest album for me, but you can definitely hear kind of where they're going. They're kind of finding their sound already on this album with some of these songs. I remember I had to go back. I was not on board with this band right away. Like I heard them on As the Palaces Burn, their second album, so I had to come back and listen to this one. It's not very impressive. Like the stuff that I really liked on As the Palaces Burn when I heard that, and when I saw them for that tour for that album, I saw them in an opening slot, and I really liked them. I'm like, man, who were these guys? So I was really impressed. But like the New American Gospel stuff, they played a few of those, but there's not a whole lot in here that I love. But there's still some good stuff. But man, it's the weirdest bass drum sound ever. It just really throws me off. My favorites are Black Label. They still play that song live.
So
today,
good live.
you know, and it's great. It's obviously way better than it sounds on this album when they play it live. I like Letter to the Unborn. I like Terror and Hubris in the House of Frank Pollard. That's a really good song too. I guess back in the day, I don't think I ever got there early enough to see him, but they opened for Mushroom Head in Cleveland a bunch of times. Like I guess somehow Devin Townsend from Strapping Young Lad produced the next album, and he was kind of involved. Like these guys know each other. The Mushroom Head guys know Devin Townsend because I've seen him play with Mushroom Head here a bunch of times too. So, and he's played in Cleveland Live, Canadian musician.
Heavy Devi.
Yeah. So I think they kind of all got together and Mushroom Head kind of liked what they did, and they had them here opening for him too. But like I said, I think I saw him once open for Mushroom Head, and I wasn't impressed. That not that I even remembered seeing them. So, but I think it was usually during the Halloween show, which Mushroom Head goes on at midnight, which is coming up here in a couple weeks. But they usually go on midnight, 1:00 in the morning. I've seen them go on. I've actually seen them go on as late as 1:45 because it was a time change. So they went on at 1:45 and played till 3, which was really 2 because of the time change. Because it was on a Saturday night. It's always a Saturday of Halloween or before Halloween. Anyway, because they don't go on till midnight or 1, they always have like 8, 10 opening bands. It seems like it starts at 6:00 every time, and there's just everybody and anybody comes and plays and opens for Mushroom Head. So I think Lamb of God was one of those bands a couple of those years. So those are my favorites on that one. Black Label, Letter to the Unborn, Terror and Hubris. And then my Skippers, I didn't really care for the song A Warning. I wasn't a big fan of that one. But I have this as a C rating, mid-tier. This is number 9. So this is the bottom for me. We're going to review 9 albums. This is the last one for me. And I still have it as a C. So, I mean, that's got to tell you something right there. Not even a C minus, just a straight C.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's some good stuff on here. You can hear some of their later sound, and it's just even the remaster sounds like crap, but there's enough here where I do like some of it. So this is the bottom spot for me for Lamb of God. But even this isn't bad. So what did you think of New American Gospel?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right with you on this one. It doesn't sound great. I mean, that's obvious. The first thing you notice right from hearing it. To me, it's a little bit leaning more on death core,
Yes,
like
yes. Hmm.
death metal. You know
They
what I
kind of
grew to.
touch on some of that later too,
They do, they
and
do.
that's yeah.
But I want to say that it it kind of flip flops. Like obviously that's there later on, but they kind of lean more on the groove metal. Like I'm a huge Pantera fan. I know you love
Ye-
Pantera too.
Yes, sir.
Like this is like the first like step of like modern groove metal for me, where it just you really get into those guitar licks and the groove of that. And there's a little bit of that here, but it was
Hmm.
more death,
Yeah.
less groove, and then as they go on, it flip flops it. Which I'm right with you. I didn't love this band right away either. I actually didn't like them at all until I saw them live. I don't love the growls all the time in my music. I want to say most of the time. This band just kind of broke that wall down for me just because of how awesome the guitars were. And when I saw them live, I just like melted in those guitars. It's so good. And I did not like Randy's vocals at all when I listened to him on album until I saw it all live, and then it all kind of fit for me. Then I went back. So I want to say the first time I saw them live was at CSU. I can't remember who they opened for.
Slipknot,
That's who
Shadows
it.
Fall.
That's
Yep.
it. Yep.
Yep.
That was the first
That was
time
that
I
power.
the first time I ever seen Lamb of God. And so up until then I didn't listen to any of the albums really. So I went back too after I saw that and was like, man, these guys are so good. So awesome. But yeah, this album just in general is rough. Doesn't sound great. I don't love a lot of the songs on it. It's actually, like you said, really hard to listen to. I do like Black Label. I do like Letter to the Unborn. I do like Black Dahlia a little bit. The Terror and Hubris song is pretty good, but I can pretty much take or leave this album. It doesn't really feel like Lamb of God to me. So I'm with you. It's at 9, and it was an easy one for me. Actually, the only easy one, because the other 8 I could completely mix around depending on what day it is, because they're all good. This is a
Mm.
solid band front to back. The guitars are always good, and that's always a stable of their music. So I have this one C minus, but again, C minus. That's as low as it's going to get. So I'm with you at 9, C minus. It's going to get way better pretty quickly.
Yes. Yes. Very. It's gonna get very good in a little bit here. So, As the Palaces Burn comes out in 2003, May 6th. This is 10 songs on it. As we mentioned, Devin Townsend produced this album. The production isn't a ton better, but it's definitely better than the last album. So this is where I first heard them. I saw them with Kill Switch right before the End of Heartache came out, as we mentioned in that podcast, also, and that's where I was like, wow, like they're playing like Ruin and 11th Hour, and I'm like, whoa, what is this here? Hang on a second. And I agree with you on Randy. For me, it's the production. So and a little bit more of the death metal. Like he did a little less spoken word, a little less singing, on the first album. It was mostly the kind of the death growl, but he still does that quite a bit on this album, but then there's a little bit more singing, but it's more the production. Like I can understand, like he has a really deep like growl that only he sounds like,
For sure.
but you can understand
Yes,
every word that comes out of his mouth where
I
you
agree.
can't on the first album, right?
Right.
So, and I'm like, I can deal with this, and for me it's just like you, this is a gateway to that. For me, I wasn't really into like death metal at all because it was just like, it's Cookie Monster eating cookies, right? Like I couldn't understand any of the words or anything. Well, that is not Randy Blythe, especially
No.
from now forward. You can understand every word that comes out of that guy's mouth. And he's kind of all over the place with his growls. Like he has got
Yeah,
more growl range than anybody. I don't
he
even know if
does.
that's a thing, but than anybody out there. Like he's kind of all over the place, and it starts to show up here, and that's where it really kind of hooked me, man. Like, whoa, the great guitars and they actually have some melody in there, and then him, and I can understand all these words. I'm like, wow, and it's so angry. Like it kind of pushes a lot of the right buttons for me. He definitely has more range. He's got this goat squeal that I don't really like, though.
Yeah.
So I sometimes, like, me and my buddy Rob, I'll call him Goat Squealer. Sometimes he knows who I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
it's just this. I don't know. It's almost like he's sucking in air and squealing at the same time. It's just not. It's not a good sound. But he does that from time to time. But it's the stuff this man can do with his voice, and he doesn't ever seem to lose it. Like, there's people that sing that way, that they come out. Chad Gray from Mudvayne is a guy that I like to compare for that reason, that he's the opposite. Like, it affects his voice. Like, he doesn't sound good until, if at all, until like 4 or 5 songs into their set. Talking about Chad Gray.
Yeah.
Randy Blythe always sounds good. Unless he's sick, he sounds amazing. Like,
Right.
it doesn't hurt his voice somehow. It's crazy. You'd think that, I mean, my voice would be gone trying to sing like that, but
Yeah.
it fits his voice, and he doesn't ever really have problems with it. So, which is amazing to me. My favorites here are Ruin, Purified, As the Palace is Burned, 11th Hour, Vigil. Basically, any of that groove stuff, like you were talking about. Like, when that stuff shows up on here, that stuff I really like. Even having said that, there's no skippers on this album for me.
Nope.
I like all the songs, so I like that group of them the most. But I like them all. This is B plus. This is number 3. So they went from number 9 to number 3 for me. I have these broken out in a weird way where, I mean, I'm going to rank them the same way I always do, but for me, it's the top 4, then it's 5 and 6, and then it's kind of 7 and 8. Like 5 and 6, I can flip flop. 7, 8, I can flip flop, and then 9 kind of stands by itself. But the top 4 like are just a little kind of separated above the other ones for me. But this, like I said, this is B plus. This is number 3. Really solid album. My first foray into Lamb of God land here, and then the best is yet to come. What did you think of As the Palace is Burned?
So once again, I'm right with you here. This is good stuff.
We'll have our disagreements later.
Yeah, we will for sure, because what I will say about Lamb of God, I'll just kind of lay out the general now. And I think a lot of bands, we will do this. So as we get into a band and we start listening to them from the beginning or early on, and then you go on through all their stuff, they have all solid albums, but you hang on to this early stuff and it can't be beat. It can't get better. And, we'll get into the rankings, how this is going to go. But this is a band, you got to let the new albums in a little bit. You got to let them in on the party, because the early stuff and the most recent stuff is all really good. So I look at, when I put my ranks together, I look at it and then I just kind of check and see kind of what everybody else thinks of their rankings and things like that, other publications and things like that. And this band is so all over the place. And for me, it explains the whole story. This band is good from basically front to back. So anywhere you put these albums kind of makes sense to me. But that being said, though, this is a great album. I love the songs on this. The production isn't a lot better, but the vocal, like you mentioned, basically had it in my notes here. Randy is up in the mix. You can understand what he says, and it just makes all the difference in the world. The songs are the songs are just better. Ruin is phenomenal. They play these songs still all the time.
Yeah, they do. 11th Hour, they play them.
As a Palace Burned, awesome.
Yep.
Purified. I'm with you. Those are my favorite songs. I also will not skip any of these. This is also my number 3. This is also a B plus. Like I figured we were going to be all over the place, and we will later on, I'm sure.
Maybe.
But it's funny.
For what you just described, maybe not. But
maybe not. But
yeah, we'll see.
Just certain bands, I'm like, I'm guilty of it myself. Like, I hang on to those first 3-4 albums, and I hold them close, and nothing can ever beat it. And I'm stubborn. But Lamb of God is not that way. I'm all over the place with this band. But yeah, this is their 3rd best album, just in terms of material. Like, this is the first time that they're like, this is what we're doing. This is the kind of music we're going to do. All the songs are perfect length. We talk all the time about too long. Like, this is perfect. Every song is 3 to 4 minutes. it kicks your ass, and then it moves on to the next one. It's phenomenal. I love this one. I wish they kind of would have stayed in this pocket. Unfortunately, I feel like while they always do the same thing, they always every album do something different. And this is the right pocket, this little range here. So maybe I am kind of along the where your pockets are, this and this, this and this. But yeah, I love this album for sure. It's good. I come back to it all the time, especially those first couple songs, and the last couple are amazing. So yeah, right with you so far. We're right neck and neck. So
all right,
and I'm sure we will be after this one too.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. I just got like a chill on my neck with just even going into this album. I love this album. Ashes of the Wake, August 31st, 2004. 11 songs on here. Man, this album, this is I don't know what you call them, deathcore, whatever. This is a masterpiece in whatever the hell label you want to put on them. This album is incredible. So this was produced by Lamb of God and a guy called Machine. And man, this everything sounds so good on this album. The production of this album is amazing. This album is 20 years old. Everything just sounds, it's such a great balance. Everybody's in top form. Lamb of God for me will never top this. Now, I had to do what you said too. You have to let the newer albums in. Like, I listened to this. I took Kelly to get her nails done. I dropped her off. I was listening to this album. I finished listening to it, and then I started listening to it again. And I had to stop myself after listening to it the second time because I will just keep listening to this album.
Right.
We just saw them in August. They played this until it was 20 years. It was the greatest thing. They played the entire album, 1 through 11, and it was fantastic. Morton and Willie's riffs are sick on here. They're just so good. Mark Morton, oh my goodness. I've watched so many videos of them explaining how they play these songs. Like, I was obsessed with this album, just obsessed. Like Chris Adler's drums, like the patterns that he does with a double bass. Like I watched foot cams of this guy playing this stuff. Like for nights, like whole nights, I'd just dive into this album and just watch every video I could possibly find. It's fantastic. This is the best Randy has ever and will ever sound is on this album and the next one too. And he doesn't ever really lose it, but he is just in such top form. It's incredibly angry, but you can understand every single word. You'd have to put a gun to my head to pick a favorite song on this album. I mean, I guess One Gun that could be, but I mean, Faded Line is always one that just sticks with me for whatever reason. There's some stuff about war. This was during the second Gulf War, right? This was when they wrote this, so there's some war related stuff on here, and Faded Line's one of those songs. But it's just One Gun's another one. But just oh man, every song on here is just fantastic, and it even has an instrumental on it. So you got guest solos from Alex Skolnick from Testament. Chris Poland, who was in Megadeth, does a guest solo, both on the same song. Oh man. On the title track, Ashes of the Wake. Alex Skolnick is the second solo out of 4 or 5. I think there's 5 solos. There's at least 4. There's one at the end, too. I can never remember if that's the 4th one or 5th one. But Chris Poland's is the 3rd. So if you listen to that song, you get the second solo you hear will be Alex Skolnick. 3rd is Chris Poland. But even the guest appearances on this album are incredible. Like, they could do no wrong on this album. This is rating A+, number 1, highest tier possible for me. There's nothing. There's. It's pretty much a perfect record for this style of music for me. It's kind of thrash death metal with an incredible groove to it. Like I was just trying to put words down to describe it, but there's not a note or anything that I don't like or that I feel is out of place on this album. It's fantastic. It doesn't get any better. What did you think of Ashes of the Wake? Number 1 for me. I mean, not even close, really. I mean, I guess it is closer than I thought, but this one is just, oh man, it's amazing.
It's good. It's really damn good. And when I told you I first got into them after seeing them open for, I guess, Slipknot. I couldn't remember who it was, but So I went back, and this one obviously clearly stood out as the one, and it still is to this day. I'm with you. Every song is good. Seeing it live just solidified all that to me. It's I think a lot of these songs that are done 20 years ago sound better live anyway, and this is no exception. I think I could obviously list all the hits that are on this album that they still play live. My song that's not
It's funny we
necessarily
say hits when
yeah,
this is a band who you'll never ever hear
never
on the radio. They get no
no.
radio airplay whatsoever. So
Yeah, I guess when
it's
I say
amazing.
hits, it's
Oh, I know.
the
It's just funny. I call them that too.
it's the 7-8 songs that no matter when you see them, you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get these songs. You're gonna get Laid to Rest. You're gonna get
yeah,
Omerta. You're
yeah,
gonna get Something to Die
yeah.
For. But for me, my favorite song on here is Hourglass. I think
Oh,
that song,
fantastic.
I love the breakdown. It's
Oh,
it's so good. Again, but I love every song. Again, no skipper. I'm with you. This is easy. This is number one. So we're 3 for 3, and now I think maybe it'll change, but
maybe.
easy. I'm not going to say A plus, but I will say an A. It's high tier. It's number one.
Yeah. I
It's
guess it
kind
all
of
depends on
yeah,
what you really love as far as musically goes for you to really put the plus on it. But for me,
sure. I
this
get
this
it.
this pushes all the buttons for me,
Yeah,
man.
no, I
So
absolutely
I
get
give
it.
very few A pluses too. So I'm with you on
Yeah,
that. I think maybe this might be my third one out of
yeah,
20 episodes, and I don't know how many albums that is. We should tally up the albums one
we
of these
should.
days and just see how many albums we've actually listened to in 20 weeks and ranked and
Yeah,
reviewed. So that would be definitely something. But yeah, I think this is my third one maybe.
okay.
So
And we've
that's
done some amazing,
oh
epic,
yeah.
classic bands.
Some
So
bands I love too. There's
yeah,
bands I love that I don't think I've given an A plus on any
right.
of the albums, but yeah,
Yeah,
that
no,
that's definitely
that's
one for me.
impressive. No, for sure, this is a classic album, and it's kind of hard to match these guys in genres because they really are very,
Yeah,
very different
yeah,
than a lot of stuff. But they're still killing it. I a lot of my ranking shifted when I listened to a lot of the new stuff again and really dug into it. But this one's not changing. This one's number one, and it's pretty hard to top. I don't know at this point that they would ever top it, but
no, no, I don't
um,
think they can touch this one. I mean,
probably
I
not.
hope they come close. I'll just say that.
Oh yeah, of course.
So,
And they still put out amazing stuff, so
oh
it's
yeah,
possible. It's
yeah.
very possible. I do miss Chris Adler though. No offense to the new dude because he's
Art
killing it too.
Cruz, yeah,
Yep.
he and seeing him live, I mean, you couldn't really tell. I mean,
You couldn't.
he's playing it note for note, so you couldn't
Yep.
really tell. I miss Chris Adler too,
Yeah.
but it's kind of almost more because I feel like I know he didn't, but I feel like he invented some of this stuff. Like I spent so much time watching this dude play that like I feel like other guys are just copying him.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
but it's more because it's the first time I ever heard anybody that could put this kind of stuff together, right?
Right.
Like that
Right.
just blew me away. And it's not just straight up blast beat where it's just so fast. Like it's got an intricate pattern. Like it's fantastic stuff. And it
Yeah.
really got me into watching drummers. Chris
Yeah.
Adler did that.
Yep.
Like, yes, I always appreciated John Bonham and some of the other great Bill Ward, some of the other great guys that we've talked about, great drummers. But this like watching him play really got me into watching how they do this stuff because I was fascinated with what this guy could do. So to me
Yeah.
it feels like he invented it. I know he didn't though, but
Yeah.
so anyway,
But
enough
yeah,
about gushing about Chris Adler. I'll have
it's
a little
all it's
little joke about him later in here too.
it's all good. Yeah. Not much else to say. We can move on.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
a great album. We both love it. It's number one and easy number
So
one for both of us.
yes, sir. Moving right along, we get Sacrament, which is came out just 2 years later, August 22nd, 2006. 11 songs on here. Machine again produced. There was another guy that helped him record stuff on this album, namely a lot of the drum tracks, and that was a guy named Josh Wilbur. So he also helped produce some of this stuff, but it's basically just says Machine produced it. He's the one that got credit for it. But Josh Wilbur, whose name you'll hear a bunch because he does all the rest of their albums. So the good thing is their production is almost always top notch from here on out. So they kind of they don't really drop off much. There's one where I'm like, but I think it's because of the style of music, like the kind of when they go more death metal-ish again later, the production doesn't sound as good, but for the most part, it's still really good, and for the most part, it's just all the rest of these sound great. More really good stuff from these guys. It's not quite on par with Ashes for me, but what could be? I mean, I could just talk about Ashes all day. The production for me is not quite as rich as Ashes, though, as Ashes of the Wake. It's a little on the high side, but it's just because I feel like Ashes is so perfect. Like I could just compare everything to that. But this album sounds great in his own right too. My favorites on this one are Walk With Me in Hell, Redneck, Pathetic, Descending, Black and the Cursed Sun. That's just to name a few. There's no skippers on here either. No effing way. This is an A rating for me. It's not A plus. This basically it's top tier. This picks up right where Ashes left off. It's just the songwriting, like it kind of there's a slight tick drop off. It's just a little notch below Ashes of the Wake for me, but it is another fantastic album, and I could not see them enough times. I mentioned I went to Toledo to see them. Like I would travel around anywhere to see these guys that played anywhere within a couple hours of me, by myself. I don't care. Like I just these two albums, I could not see them enough times. What did you think of Sacrament?
So you had it 2?
Yes, number
Okay.
2. Sorry,
It's okay. Just making sure. And we're finally going to differ. This
all right.
one,
You're crazy.
yeah. Like I said, 1 through 8 are all really
Yeah.
good.
We're going to be splitting hairs as far as
We are. We are.
So
I liked Sacrament a lot more early on. This one doesn't hold up quite as well for me just because of the songs. I think this album is very top heavy. I think when I listen to it, the first up to Foot to the Throat, I do not like Foot to the Throat. So up to that song, I think it's a killer album. And then it kind of is hit or miss for me. I Black and the Cursed Sun is great, but the Forgotten I don't like. That's a skipper for me. This is kind of when it hits, it's awesome, and when it misses for me, it misses. So
it's kind of funny that you say that, because when I was listening to this, I expected to sound like that.
Yeah,
Like for you thought this was better, and when you went back to it now,
Yes.
you were like, I didn't get into it as much. It was kind of the opposite for me, where I was like, how really good was Sacrament? And then as I was listening to it, I get to those later songs, and I'm like, would I skip this one? I'm like, no, I like this one. And
Yeah.
then the next one, I'd be like, would I skip this one? I'm like, no, I like this one too. Like I couldn't find one that I thought was worthy of skipping. So, but it's weird that we went back to it and both had an
Yeah.
opposite perspective.
Well, this is the first example of let the new in for me, and this was me opening the floodgates to, okay, well, nothing is as good as Ashes, so there's nothing that they're ever going to do that's going to come close to that. But where else can I fit these new records in? Because I love these new records. I don't skip anything mostly off these new records too. So to me, it's like I got to fit it in, and to me, it's like, where do I slide Sacrament down a little bit, because it's always been number 2 for me, but now it's number 5. So it's allowed some room to breathe. Again, I still think there's some amazing moments on it. Obviously, they still play those first few songs a lot, mostly every show. Classic stuff. I can't argue that. There's some stuff on here that it just feels good, but there's just a few things to me that just don't, I guess, live up anymore to where it used to. So number 5 is it's just top heavy. When it hits, it's awesome, and it makes me want to put it at 2. But some of the songs just bring it down a little bit more for me, and I let these new ones come in a little bit. It's still a B tier album for me. I still really like it. I still come back to it. I just don't come back to the whole album. I just pick my spots with this one. So just comes in at number 5. And I let some new stuff in.
Let it in, let it breathe. All right, so then we move on to Wrath, which came out in February 23rd of 2009. Another 11 songs. Another thing I give this band credit for is one album that they put 14 songs on, and it's one that it's not my favorite, one of my favorites of theirs, but for the rest of the time, 10 songs, 11 songs, like they just know they just get out of their own way, right? Like they write however many songs they write, they put the best 10 or 11 on there, done.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
they don't mess around trying to, hey, we got more space on these CDs. Let's see if we can fit more songs on there. Why not
Yeah.
16, 15? We got like something for like 92 seconds we can squeeze in there. Like they don't do any of that. They just 10, 11 songs, whatever the best stuff is, you're like, this is us. This is the best we did. There you go. Here it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
So there's definitely something to be said for that. This was a deliberately more live recorded album and raw. Both there's a couple band members mentioned it. According to Chris Adler and Mark Morton, both said that this was, they kind of made a change to try to make this more of a live sounding. Like they went with the if a song sound perfect, they basically wouldn't put it on there, which I don't know, to me that kind of sounds silly.
Yeah.
But they wanted some flaws in there to make it sound more live and raw, I guess. But this is definitely there's a change in tempo. It's faster, it's heavier. This is more death metal-ish. So it kind of starts to bring it down. I like that groove. I mean, it's weird, but and I'll talk more about it later. That I have a real fine line, in my Lamb of God, where I love it or I just like it.
Yep.
It's like there's a real fine line there. So people might listen to this and go, I don't really see much difference. Well, there is. It's just faster. There's more like blast beat stuff, like I keep mentioning. It's just it's too fast.
Yeah.
It's just speed for speed's sake. It almost feels like they're just so much better writing songs the way that they were before. But I also get it. Like you can't just keep putting the same stuff out all the time. So even having said that I don't like some of this stuff, I still don't have anything that's really worthy of skipping for me. Like I let the whole thing play. There's nothing on here that I hate or that I'm like, wow, what were they doing there? Like I've said a million times for a bunch of other bands. It all sounds like Lamb of God. It's just some it's just a little beyond. It's a little too death metal for me. And I just, I'm like, yeah, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not doesn't put it in the high range of stuff that I really like by them. So this I had as a B minus. My favorites are Set to Fail, Grace, Broken Hands. Those three kind of stand out to me. This is mid tier B minus. This is number 6 for me. This is still a solid album, but it's just not nearly as good for me as Ashes and Sacrament, and that goes to the groove that you were mentioning before. Those albums have it. This one doesn't have as much of it. The songwriting is just not as good. The guitar hooks aren't there for me on this one like were on the other ones. But it all kind of sounds. I almost don't even want to say anything bad about them at all because I still have it as a B minus.
Yeah.
I'm not bashing them. It's just they can't obviously keep writing the same songs. But it's still good. It's still good. But it's not one I come back to as a favorite where I'm like, yeah, let's go listen to that again. This one it's okay. What did you think of Wrath?
This one's a no. This one's a
down.
no for me, dog.
That's okay.
No,
And for those reasons.
Basically the same exact reasons. It just put it towards
that
the
makes
bottom
sense,
for me.
right? That's what drug it down for me too.
I don't like many of these songs. I do like the instrumental at the beginning. I think is cool, and then I like Grace.
Okay,
that's about it for me. I don't love a lot of these songs. They're not. There's no bad songs. I'm not turning off. I was going to say
so nothing you're skipping, but just
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's some stuff that I may be skipping a little bit, but like Set to Fail to me is a cool song, but I don't know what Randy is doing in these choruses. It's he does it better later where he goes all in with the singing. This is it's like part singing, part I don't know,
spoken word.
I don't know what the hell it is, but to me it sounds corny as hell. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I don't like Choke Sermon. Like some of these lyrics to me are just a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
This song or this album in particular, a lot of cringe. Maybe I don't know where they're at. Where I draw the line with Lamb of God, it's like pretty much like what you said. When it goes more to the heavy than it is to the groove, then that's where I'm kind of not out, but like I'm never going to come back to this album, like hardly ever. Just like I would never hardly go back to the first record. So this is number 8 for me. still a C. I'm not going to turn it off. It's not, I just don't know that I would go to it. It's not something that sticks with me. So just not a whole lot of good stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. I actually saw them open for Metallica on this. Were you at that Metallica
Yep,
show?
yep. Actually stood right by. So there was like the drum kit was at our end of the. I was on the floor.
Yep.
The drum kit was at our end. Obviously, Metallica floor. It's like a strip all the way around the bottom of the floor, right? Because their stage
Yeah.
is so huge. But I stood right next to where the bands come in and out, which was pretty cool. Right next to the railing, right behind the soundboard. But it was great for me because, well, first they're opening for Metallica. They played like
Yeah.
8 songs.
Yep.
They played one song off of Wrath, I think. So they didn't play much. They played mostly their hits.
They played
But
set to fail, and the passing was the intro
okay,
to it. But yeah.
okay, and that was it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, the rest of it was just pretty much fantastic, and I got to stand right behind Chris Adler, so I'm watching him play drums from his view, So it was kind of up a little higher, but it was pretty awesome. Like I couldn't see Randy really sing at all, but I could watch Chris Adler play drums, which for me was fantastic. So
Yep.
yeah, I've seen him from the front many times. It was cool to kind of see him play from behind him, almost like I'm a drum tech, but just further away. It was fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, the show was awesome, but the album for me just didn't hit. So number 8 and a C for me.
All right. On to Resolution. So this was January 24th, 2012. So it's about 3 years gone by here. 14 songs. Josh Wilbur produced. Now this is 2 in a row for him. This was kind of written in pieces starting on the Wrath tour, which for them was a little different. Like they were writing kind of as a collective and then going into the studio. So they had demos or whatever, but they weren't. This was written over a long period of time. They wrote a lot of this stuff recorded on laptops in hotel rooms or on the road during Wrath. So for me, I feel like that made it kind of suffer because this is the second last album for me. So this is 8 out of 9. This is just a C for me. 14 songs is way too many. I like Ghost Walking. I like number 6. I like To the End. I didn't like King Me, which is the last song. It's really long and it's kind of meanders all over the place. I do like some of it, but a lot of it is just kind of blah for me. It's okay, but I'm not skipping a lot of it. But it's just too many songs here, and it just felt kind of disjointed, like it was kind of written in chunks and kind of pieced together. I almost felt like this was something they were forced into recording. Like it kind of felt like, even though they wrote over a long period of time, and that kind of seems organic, it almost feels like they got them together and like, guys, you guys got to get another album out. Do you guys have anything? Just throw it together. Just put it on. Like it kind of felt like that to me. Like there's nothing that felt like man, this song like really, got worked into this great thing. It just kind of felt all over the place. So
Right.
what did you think of this? I have this as an 8. So what did you think of Resolution?
I have it basically where you do. I have it at number 7. So just a little above Wrath. So that's bottom, where you have it. It's the one album. It's too long. There's too many songs. And I think around when this came out, I heard a Morton interview, and he basically said, he's like, man, if I could just shave off like 4 of these tracks, this might be a better album.
Maybe he lost out on the tug of war that time.
Maybe
somebody else got more songs in there.
To me, it's got some, like you said, it's got some good stuff in it. I do like the first probably 5 or 6 songs are pretty good.
Top heavy again.
Yeah, it's very top heavy. With me, if you kind of cut out maybe like Invictus, didn't really like that. Cheated, I don't like that.
I should have done that. Yeah. I should have tried to look and see which ones I would have cut out. I should have done that. I'm sorry.
So if you make it to like 10 songs, then this I think is dramatically better. But it's just the one album. It just meanders. It lingers on too long. By halfway through, I'm done with it. I'm ready to go to something else. Just not a good sign. But they don't have a lot of this in millions of bands that we talk about or are going to talk about. Just they get to where they just record everything and just put it out, I feel like. And this was their one incident of doing that. And I feel like just too much here. It's not that good. It's it just meanders on too long. So cut maybe 3-4 songs and I might like this better, but for me it's number 7. It's about C tier, just about with Wrath, just for different reasons for me.
All right. Speaking of 7, the 7th album, Sturm und Drang, which means storm and stress. This came out September 24th, 2015. That's 10 songs on this album. This is the last album with Chris Adler, who left to go work at Home Depot in 2019.
Poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. This is produced by Josh Wilbur. Um, there's more collaboration and songwriting with Mark Morton and Willie Adler. I guess apparently they wrote together on this one instead of kind of writing in separate places. Randy Blythe, singer, famously spent time in prison in Czechoslovakia for. There's a fan jumped up on stage, was kind of moshing, headbanging with him, and he pushed him out into the crowd. And I guess he hit his head and later died from a head injury. So they kind of blamed Randy for, some kind of manslaughter. And then he was found to be responsible or kind of more negligent. Like he wasn't trying to kill him, but he did end up having to serve some time in a Czechoslovakia prison that he wrote some lyrics while he was in there. So the song 512 is from the cell in prison, cell number 512 that he was in. Still echoes as inspired by the history of the prison that he was in the Czech Republic. So there's definitely some things going on here. They didn't tour much because of him being in prison for a while there. I guess he came back. He was out on bail, and they toured, I guess, in the summer, and then he had to go back. And I like this one a little more than Resolution. 10 songs are much better than 14. Guest appearances on here by Chino Moreno of the Deftones, on Embers, and Greg Puciato, Dillinger Escape Plan singer, on Torches. My favorites on here are 512. Overlord is good, like the second half of it, but I wish it was about 2 minutes shorter. Engage the Fear Machine I like too. I did not like Footprints, is the only skipper on here for me. This is a C plus, so it's not a huge step up, but it's a step up from Wrath. This sounds like Lamb of God again, but again only a few songs really stand out to me. It's not so death metal-y. They're kind of getting there. It's kind of like Stella. They're getting their groove back a little bit, right? I'm happy it's 4 songs shorter. I do realize this is where I put in here to mention this. I do realize the line between what I love about Lamb of God and what I kind of like is very fine. So it's a really fine line. So I like more of this, but it does kind of sound similar in some respects to Wrath, but there is more of their groove back in here. What did you think of Sturm und Drang, the 7th album by Lamb of God?
So this is where things get a little crazy, because I love this album. I when I first heard this thought this was the perfect marriage of amazing production and groove metal to me. This was, to me, I'm just going to cut to the chase. This is my second favorite album of Lamb of God.
That's pretty shocking.
I knew that there was going to be a few in here that got to it, but I love every song on this record. This is the only other album other than Ashes that I love every song, that I won't skip any of them. I think this is so good. It's heavy, but it sounds good. I think this is the best Randy sounding album since Ashes. I love the mix. It's just I just sit in my chair and melt to this album. I love it. I love the guitar riff in 512. I love the breakdowns of Still Echoes, and I think Embers is a phenomenal song. That's a song personal to Morton. I think he wrote that one specifically. I think Overlord is phenomenal. I think it's what I want them to do more of. I think when Randy's singing in that, I think he sounds amazing. I think I didn't think he had it in him. they tried to, go for whatever in that track I was telling you on Wrath, Set to Fail, where it sounds corny. It sounds like it's forced. He's like half-ass singing instead of like really singing. And here he really sings. I don't think there's any filler on this. This one is all good to me. So just a little bit different, I guess, than what you thought. But this one was really stuck with me since it released. Number two,
Yeah, just never.
This one's a B plus for me. So
Okay.
it's number 2. I love it.
It just never really hooked with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm always excited for a new Lamb of God album to come out. So this one was no different. So I kind of go into all of them thinking, could this be the next Ashes? So
Yep.
because I don't know, so I go into it thinking, with all the optimism, and this one just didn't hook me. So there's just not a whole lot here other than 512 and, like I said, Overlord, that really hooked me. Like, Delusion Pandemic was okay. Anthropoid, I don't know. Like, they're not skippers. Like, I didn't really care for Footprints, but they're not skippers, but there's nothing about them where I'm going to go back and seek out that song. So like I would on, there's times where I'm like, yeah, I want to hear Hourglass, and I'll just, like you mentioned, Hourglass, and I'll just go listen to Hourglass, and then I'll end up listening to the whole album. But
right.
or I just want to hear Redneck or whatever, So there's times where, like, these songs to me, other than 512, what do they even play off of here live these days? 512, and that's probably
just
about
512.
it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they don't play anything else, so
Yep.
I don't know. It just didn't hook me. But the next album did. So the next album, self-titled, and our friend Brian, said, maybe not so famously yet, in a couple episodes ago with Killswitch, where he talks about how Killswitch has 2 albums called Killswitch Engage. So Lamb of God only did it once, but he said it is kind of silly, and you're really smelling yourself to name an album after your band's name. But they finally did it. It took them a while, but this came out in 2020, June 19th. It's 5 years in between. It's the longest gap between albums, 5 years between 7 and this one. First album with Art Cruz replacing Chris Adler on drums. Adler said after he left in interviews that he did not make the decision to leave his life's work. So that leads me to believe he was pushed out. I know he was in a motorcycle accident and he had to do some rehab, and they were supposed to play some summer dates with Slayer, which was supposed to be, I believe, their farewell tour. And he played some of those dates, but then had more problems and then kind of disappeared. And they brought Art Cruz in to finish the tour. And Chris basically never became part of Lamb of God again. So I never really knew what happened with that. There's not a whole lot of detail out there that I could find. It's just kind of one word against the other. But he did say, I did not make the decision to leave my life's work. And to me, that sounds pretty honest. So, but he also said that he's unwilling to paint by numbers. So I love you, Chris, but maybe I'd rather they paint by numbers, because this has a lot more of the groove back for me. This album for me is really good. This one, I have a hard time between this one and As the Palaces Burn, their second album, as to which one is 3 and which one is 4 for me. I have them with the exact same rating. There's a guest appearance on here by Chuck Billy and a song Roots, which I really like. And Jamie Josta, who I'm not a real big fan of. I just got Jamie Josta fatigue from him being like everywhere there for like the 90s and early to mid to late 2000s. It's like he's Headbangers Ball, and he's here, and he's on this album and that album. And it's like, he's got podcasts, a radio show, and it's Jamie Josta everywhere. But the song Poison Dreams is pretty good. So they did not tour for this album due to COVID. They play some of these songs now, but they didn't tour basically at all for this album. They kind of just went back in the studio and wrote the next one and recorded the next one. But my favorites on this one are Memento Mori. It's a great song. Checkmate's great. New Colossal Hate is great. Resurrection Man, I really like. Bloodshot Eyes, I like. Skipper's maybe On the Hook, the last song, but even there's parts of that one I like too. So this is B plus for me. This is upper tier. This is number 4. Like I said, I could rank this 3. I actually had them. I had this one 3 and As the Palaces Burn 4, and then I flip flopped them because kind of As a Palace Is Burned was the first time I got into them. So I'm like, these songs feel more classic to me. But I'm like, but then I've been like, are they really better? And I almost switched them back. So I don't know. I had this one 4. This is a real solid step up from 7 for me. And this is their best work since Sacrament for me. I really like this album a lot. I guess, I'm sorry, Chris, but I guess I'd rather they paint by numbers. Keep with the groove, man. Keep the groove alive. What did you think?
Yeah, it's a good album. Definitely good album. I liked it from when it dropped. It's really good. It's really hard to
They were
rank
dropping
these.
songs like, what, 4 or 5 months ahead of time on this one? Like, I felt like I heard half the album by the time it came out.
For sure, yeah. I think that's the new way of doing things.
It
At
is,
least
but
it
I don't
seems.
remember them doing that until that album,
For
right?
sure,
Like,
for
and then
sure.
now it's like, yeah, this last album too,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep. It's good. Like you said, it's just really hard to rank these. This one, just for me, it fell a little lower just the way that things were. So it was 6 for me, but just right behind Sacrament. I mean, these are all good albums. I still listen to this. I think Memento Mori is a phenomenal opener. I seen them,
Yeah.
I seen them last year and I seen them the year before. They opened with it, and it's just a perfect, nice, creepy opening into the wake up. It's so cool. It gets you going. He always got that big leap off the drum riser when he does. It's awesome. Resurrection Man, they play live. It's awesome. It's a good album. I guess when I had to put pen to paper, it came number 6. This is hard. I mean, everything between 3 and 6 was hard for me. I kind of knew where everything else was going to go, but good, solid album. It's a B- for me. It's really, really good. I keep trying to let this new stuff in, and it's not disappointing. It's really, really good. So it's number 6, but it's a B-. Like, we're at number 6. We're at the bottom part of their catalog, and it's B-. I mean, this is good stuff, man. It's great albums.
Yeah.
So yeah, all good. I wouldn't really skip anything. I love the Chuck Billy cameo in here.
Yeah.
On Routes, man. He
Chuck
sounds
Billy, he does, and he's got like some different places he can sing, right? Like, so he sounds, you still know it's Chuck Billy, but like there's times in Testament where he's like so overpowering, like, and he's got this big heavy growl too. But on this one, he kind of sings more, you know. So it's definitely a different Chuck Billy sound. I mean, he does that on Testament albums too, but it's just like he can kind of guest on almost any real heavy band's album because Chuck Billy can do so many different things with his voice, you know, so he can kind of fit a lot of different stuff. But yeah, he does sound great on there. All right, so let's move on to their last album, their most recent one, October 7th, 2022, Omens. 10 songs. Josh Wilbur is still producing for them. They didn't tour, as I said, for the self-titled album, so they just wrote and recorded a new album, and this was it. Lyrics about social upheavals due to COVID, blah, 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 as everyone has done and everyone will do,
right, if
they haven't yet. So most of this album was recorded live in the same room, which is different than what most bands were doing, especially during COVID. You know, most bands were recording stuff in their own houses and emailing and sending stuff around and piecing things together. They decided they're like, hey, well, I guess if we're going to get COVID, we're just going to pass around to each other. So we're just going to have the same room and recorded, all together. So, my favorites are To the Grave, Omens, the title track, and Gomorrah. Denial Mechanism, I didn't really care for. It'd be my only skipper on here. There's some really good stuff here, but this is kind of middle of the road for me from this band. So I have this at 5. You know, if there was 10 albums, this would be right smack in the middle. And so I guess there's 4 ahead of it and 4 behind it, so it is right in the middle. How about that?
Yep.
So it's just but I still have it in a B range, you know. So that kind of tells you, you know, nothing below a C for me from this band, you know. So it's still B level material. It's still good. I'll still go back and listen to this album. I don't really dislike any of it. I mean, yeah, I'd skip Denial Mechanism maybe if I had the skip button closed, but if not, I'd just let it play. So there's nothing on here that I really don't like. So how did you feel about Omens?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Sounds great. Production is so good. guys just sound so good. It's like they got the art of making an album. Nothing ever sounds bad. It all sounds good. It
10
flows
songs,
real
10
nice.
songs, 11
Yeah.
songs, 38, 42 minutes.
4-minute song, 4-minute
Yep,
song,
yep.
3-minute song. Like
Pump them out. Yep.
they got the formula. It's so good. This is a good album, and I think this one has room to breathe a little bit.
Hmm.
For me, it's number 4, so it's like right around in the middle there. It's good. Everything is so good. I just kind of circle around to what we were saying before. Like
Hmm.
there's such a solid band. Like everything you put on, you know what you're gonna get. It might be a little different, but ultimately it's so good. It's a really good band, and you just appreciate it more when you kind of do a dive into their whole catalog like this.
Yeah.
And I respect them live. Everybody loves them. Like everybody's excited to see them. Like I go to the festival circuit a lot, and you hear people talking. Oh, Lamb of God's playing at 8 o'clock. It's just like everybody respects them. They go up there and they sound good all the time. Just a killer band. But
Yep. I
everything's
wrote a little
solid.
paragraph at the end about that. I wrote that, that there's nothing below a C, not even a C minus, which tells you, kind of how big of a fan I am of this band, even though sometimes I don't realize it myself,
Right.
and how consistent they've been able to be over 25 years. They've been putting that out. They put out 9 albums over 25 years, and they continue to just sound great and be great. Like they varied slightly here and there, but ultimately remained exactly themselves. So
Yep.
it's commendable, and they get the utmost respect from me, and they're one of the biggest bands for me in the second half of my music listening life. Really, like from I don't know eight on until now, like the whole second half of that is Lamb of God is right up there.
Yeah.
So it's just I really, really like this band a lot. So, and I look forward to hearing more albums. None of these guys, I think they're all probably a little younger than me. So, I mean, they're all between your age and my age, pretty much, I think, except maybe for John Campbell. He looks like he's 75, but I look like I'm way older too. So, I can
well,
commiserate with them, but
well,
but
the one band.
otherwise, I feel like they're all late 40s, early 50s. Like they should be able to put out a few more of these for sure.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about is just Randy's voice. Like
Me
how
too, but
long?
what has he shown any signs of slowing down at
No,
all? I mean, it's crazy. But
no, but
yeah, how long can you do that, right?
he's 53 now. Like
Okay.
I,
They're a
I
year
I
older
don't
than me then.
yeah, I don't know how much longer he can do that. And again, it's hilarious. I watch these interviews with him, and he's just like, man, he's like, how much longer am I going to be able to run up on stage and scream the things that I scream and stuff? He's like, it almost sounds silly at this point, but it
Yeah,
just, but he does.
I
He sounds
guess.
phenomenal still, and
Yeah.
I just it. This
I
is
say
one
don't slow
band.
down until you
Well,
start to
right,
lose it, right? Like, man, and while you still got it, get it
yeah.
out there, right? Like,
I mean,
hopefully he doesn't just feel like he's goofy, you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
there's 20-year-olds that love these guys, and they're like
Oh
he's a
yeah,
god to them. Like I hope he doesn't stop doing it because he feels like it's goofy, because he feels like he's too old to do it, because
yeah.
people don't think that. None of
Well,
us think that, so none of us are thinking that. So I
yeah.
hope he doesn't stop doing it because of that.
Yeah, no, probably not. I just think he's talking more about his earlier stuff, like just the things in the earlier songs. This is a MF invitation. Like, just he's like, I think he was more talking about those type of things. Like,
Huh.
I think his lyric writing has kind of improved over the years. Some of them in the past was a little bit
It has,
cringy,
but
but
those are anthems, man.
yeah, oh
Like
yeah, I
people,
know, I
he doesn't
know,
even have to sing any of that stuff. People sing it for him,
I
like
know,
my
I know.
goodness.
No, that's probably what he will do. But
Yeah.
no, phenomenal. Lamb of God's one of those bands that I'll usually see if they're coming, especially
Me too.
especially if they're coming like Nautica or someplace like that. It sounds so good.
You
So
think they'll do a 20-year of Sacrament? I don't think they will, because they just did the 20-year of
no,
Ashes. But that was their commercial apex, I believe, was
yeah,
probably around then, right? So that's when a lot of people younger than you and I were getting into them, around then. So
yeah, it's
I
hard to
wonder. I
say.
wonder if they would. But yeah, like you said, I'd go see them anytime. So
Yep. All right, what do you got? 1 to 9.
all right, number 1, Ashes of the Wake. Number 2, Sacrament. Number 3, as of now, As the Palaces Burn. Number 4, the self-titled Lamb of God, which we just discussed. Omens. Number 5, right in the middle. 6, I have Wrath. 7, I have 7, Sturm and Drang. 8, I have Resolution. And 9, New American Gospel.
All right.
Watch yourself.
Number 1, and Ashes of the Wake, easy peasy. Number 2, 7, Strum und Drang. Number 3, As Palaces Burn. Number 4, Omens. Number 5, Sacrament. Number 6, I have the self-titled. 7, I have Resolution, or is it Resolution, right?
Rosalie, yep.
8 is Wrath, and 9 is the New American Gospel. Just great albums, man. So good. I'm so glad we did Lamb of God.
Yeah.
Such a fun time. I love these guys.
Yeah. Still not a whole lot of listeners, so not sure who, there's still kind of an extreme band for most people, but yeah, I'm always happy to listen and go see these guys and talk about them. So there was a time there when we talked about Killswitch Engage a few episodes ago too. I mentioned that they kind of opened the door to some of these other bands for me, and this is one of them. And man, did this dominate like the mid 2000s for me, 2004, 2006, just like Killswitch did. These guys were right there, in the 5-disc changer with End of Heartache. I had Ashes of the Wake in there, and Sacrament was in there, and it's just it was fantastic, man. They're so good, and they've remained great.
Yep. All right, what do we got next week, partner?
Are we doing Metallica next week?
I think next week is Metallica.
I believe next week is finally the mighty Metallica. So
we gotta
get for a long episode.
yeah, we're gonna go hard on that one, and let's get this out that are we gonna do Tuesday next week?
Yep, Tuesday,
okay.
6:45.
So let's get this out there and start talking about Metallica, because everybody likes Metallica, at least some of Metallica, old school Metallica for sure, but. Let's get it out there and try to get some people in this live chat. Let's, try to get some people talking, because I feel like a lot of people like the same records with Metallica, but there might be some surprises in there as well. So absolutely, let's go. So yeah, so next Tuesday, 6:45 Eastern time, we're gonna go live with Metallica.
We'll try to promote the crap out of this one too. I'm gonna try to make sure maybe I'll just really get on people's nerves and put something out every day for next week. See if we can get some people in here to argue with us or agree with us or just chat it up about Metallica. So everybody knows who Metallica is. So
yep, absolutely.
There's nobody that couldn't join that one. I mean, we could get Taylor Swift in here and she could talk about Metallica. So anybody can talk about Metallica.
That's fair. All right, partner. Well,
that wraps up Lamb of God.
That's it for Lamb of God. Hope everybody that listens, nobody's joined us, but hopefully people that listen enjoy the episode as much as we enjoyed making it. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Rock on.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.